This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hello all, Saradichi rhymes with Peachy here, and yes, Sony made yet another camera. And yes, these are different cameras. This is the Sony FX3, and well, this is the new Sony FX30. The FX30 is even compatible with the same audio interface handle that you're used to on the FX3. Well, hey, maybe they're not exactly the same. The 1/4-inch holes for the cage-free design on the FX30 are actually black instead of silver. The FX30 has the same red tally lights while recording, dual CF Express Type A and SD card slots, and the same Sony NP-FZ100 batteries. And well, okay, I've buried the lead for too long. So the FX30 is Sony's first APS-C camera in their FX Cinema line. So it's joining the FX3, the FX6, FX9, and that random PTZ robot camera that they just released. Which honestly, I totally thought was gonna be a DJI Ronin 4D competitor, but yay, it didn't happen. And then above that FX Cinema line, you have, you know, the fancy Venice cinema cameras that literally shoot movies and TV shows for a little bit of context. And so they wanna use this camera essentially as like the gateway drug into the Sony cinema line. I mean, it happened to me. I started years ago with the A7S II, and now I find myself with 2 FX6s, 2 FX3s, 1 A7S III. It's a problem. And so, well, why bother with an APS-C version of the FX3? Well, the price tag. I think you're gonna like it. The FX30 is coming in at $17.99 US without the XLR audio interface, and then $21.99 with it, which is a little less than half the price of the FX30. So this means the FX30's 26 megapixel sensor is smaller than the 12 megapixel full frame sensor found in the Sony A7S III and the FX3. Full frame sensors let in more light and have more depth of field, aka, you know, the blurry background when shooting with equivalent focal lengths. When using Sony's full frame lenses on the FX30, like this 24-105, it's one of my favorite lenses, you need to apply a 1.5 times crop factor to understand the focal length. So this 24-105 on the FX30 would effectively turn into a 36-157 mil, but Sony also already has a lot of great lenses designed specifically for their APS-C cameras. So when searching around, if you just see an E, that means it's specifically for an APS-C Sony camera. These lenses are smaller and more portable. If you see an FE, that is for full frame Sony cameras like the FX3, A7S III, but again, you can use full frame lenses on APS-C cameras, but to utilize that smaller form factor, that's where those E lenses come in handy. Okay, the specs. Basically, it's an FX3, but with a smaller sensor. So you have 4K up to 120 frames per second. You have 1080 up to 240 frames per second. You have the same file formats enabling 422 10-bit recording. My fave is XAVC HS 420 10-bit. You definitely can't tell that much of a difference between 420 and 422, but you can tell a difference when you start doing 8-bit versus 10-bit. So that's a good sweet spot, and doing that XAVC HS, the file sizes aren't bad at all either. With the FX30, you also have 6K oversampling, which is fantastic. Basically takes the full resolution of the sensor and resamples it down into a 4K image. And then I guess what, you know, makes this a cinema camera is you got that S-Cinetone, yay! And it's the S-Cinetone that looks like the S-Cinetone of the FX3 and the FX6. Even though the FX6 S-Cinetone still looks a little different, it's not like the S-Cinetone, which is in the A9. That S-Cinetone just looks so different from the cinema cameras, which I hope Sony kind of hones in on, and I'm hoping S-Cinetone starts looking more similar with all their cameras. If that means, hey, we don't put S-Cinetone in the A9, great. I think there's more benefit in keeping S-Cinetone looking great and looking similar in between cameras. cameras, because I am just so concerned about the brand of S-Cinetone. And also you have the ability to view and bake in custom LUTs into your image for a fast turnaround for edits. So you have all of those great picture profiles. If you want to shoot in something like S-Log3 and all of that, get the, you know, max 14 stops of dynamic range, but that ability to bake in LUTs allows you to bake in your look and then just turn around that edit if you need a quick export for social. You have a dual base ISO at 800 and 2500, a 5-axis in-body image stabilization, which looks fantastic, and a zoom rocker. So obviously the FX30 will get compared to the FX3 a lot. And the full frame versus APS-C / super 35mm sensor debate will be invigorated again. You guys fight in the comments, which is better? Me personally, I am full frame all day. And maybe the FX30 will even get compared to other Sony APS-C cameras like this one. This is the Sony Alpha 6600. And also, honestly, it shouldn't even be compared. Like, the video features of this guy knocks this guy out of the park. But I feel like the more interesting debate might be around comparing it to the other affordable cinema cameras in the same price range. Enter, ooh, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema cameras. I haven't gotten to talk about these babies in a while. I started my documentary filmmaking career on these guys. So I have a ton of experience with the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema cameras, and even though I don't shoot with them anymore, I still keep them around for some reason, maybe for sentimental reasons. But hey, let's go back to price for a second. So the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera 4K comes in at only $12.95. However, it has a 4/3 sensor, so a really, really tiny sensor. But the more comparable model with the super 35mm sensors, that is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera 6K. So this comes in at $19.95. Okay, so we have the FX30 right next to the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6K. We have them at very similar compositions. We're just gonna start out with standard mode because I actually think Sony's standard color looks amazing. And then we have the Gen 5 video color from Blackmagic that finally looks good straight out of camera. And then we'll switch over to like the film preset and then also S-Cinetone. But remember, one of the biggest advantages of Blackmagic is you can shoot raw internally, and especially since I use Resolve now, that means I can go in and tweak anything I want after. So it's not apples to apples, but I'm just doing max everything. So I am shooting in 6K on this guy, and then I'm shooting 4K all eye on this. So all eye, big file sizes, but it's the best of the best. And remember, Blackmagic doesn't have continuous autofocus. You can set a single point of autofocus with that or their app, but I had to go back to my old days of putting a tripod to focus for my face. Okay, here we go. Hopefully the dynamic range is good. You have some light coming in with the windows. However, it is later in the day, like 6:45 p.m., so it's not coming in too hot. Wide video, and then we're going to punch in a little bit. Okay, so now we are at 50 mil. Obviously, the huge thing with the Blackmagic that I just mentioned is no continuous autofocus. If I was shooting this on my FX6 or the FX3, you would obviously probably get some more depth of field for this shot. Okay, so now we are S-Cinetone and the flat film look from Blackmagic. Obviously, you know, this is super flat here, and it would probably be more comparable if I switched it over to like S-Log3 over in Sony land. It's gonna take some more work to make it look good, and I know in the beginning of my days with the Blackmagic, that's what I struggled the most with, is color grading it. However, it forces you to learn how to color grade, and again, it's all about trade-offs, what you need, and your workflow. If it's okay with you, let's head to the skate park. So the actual proper mission today is to help you film your YouTube video. Exactly. So I'll give you this footage from the FX30. It's sweet! Hopefully I'm not making you look like a weirdo at the skate park with these cameras.
Not even a little bit, but there's also like barely anyone here, which is amazing.
All right, let's do it, guys. This is your first time seeing it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's just like an FX3, but not.
You want a 360 flip really casually?
Sure.
go. Oh, she's going fast. Oh my god. Yeah. Oh, she's turning. Nice. Oh, yeah! Nice. Nice.
Journey has concluded. Good job shredding. Oh!
You shredded too.
I did a little bit of shredding. Woo! Okay, that was a shockingly cool Texas day. 80 degrees, we had a cool wind going. There's a lot to unpack here, and I'm still looking at all the footage, and so we need to dive into some things. But before that, hey, Squarespace, thank you so much for sponsoring this video. From websites and online stores, from marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is your one-stop shop to build a beautiful online presence and to run your business. I personally use Squarespace for sarad if any brands or new subscribers want to get to know me, and also have a ton of experience running a photo studio off of Squarespace and using their scheduling platform as the backbone of bookblanco.com. It makes it so incredibly easy to accept payments and really to own your business. Right now, I am all about owning your process, whether it is your creative process or your business. And that means being able to own every step of the process, and Squarespace helps you do that. That means, hey, if you want to run a merch store, Squarespace has the tools for that. If you want to make your own online course or create a Patreon-like community behind a paywall, Squarespace has the tools for that. Another amazing tool to build a community and build an audience and really own your audience is an email newsletter. Now, this is something I have completely slacked on because I feel like I thrive creatively via video, but man, I'm like, I kind of want to send out a newsletter. I don't have really any ideas. Videos, I have an infinite amount of ideas, but let me know down in the comments below, is there something you would want to hear from me about on not a weekly basis, because I don't think I can keep up with that, but maybe a bi-weekly or maybe one newsletter every single month? What do you guys want to hear from me? I am going to make a beautiful newsletter page on my Squarespace website where you can sign up, and I'm actually gonna start this. I don't know if I'm gonna start it tomorrow or 1 month from now or 2 months from now, but one day you are gonna have the most fire, stay peachy newsletter come into your inbox ever, because I'm feeling inspired by this sponsor segment by Squarespace. So if you're not checking out my link, squarespace.com/saradici for 10% off your first purchase of a domain or website, you can check out my beautiful Squarespace website and that beautiful newsletter block, which was so easy to set up, and it's so easy for you to just join. Come on over. That was probably the lamest way to ask for your email ever. Hey guys, I'm gonna maybe write a newsletter someday, sign up here. So hey, if you feel like today is the day to set up that epic online portfolio, to get those photo, to get those video clients, or to start your online store, you go to squarespace.com for a free trial, or again, go to squarespace.com/saradici, that is me, for 10% off your first purchase of a domain or website. Okay, I'm gonna have to do my final thoughts tomorrow because my brain is fried from kind of shooting all day. Okay everyone, I think I only have 1 or 2 hot takes with this camera. I've enjoyed it overall, has been a great experience. Some little things that bother me is, okay, when you use the smaller APS-C lenses, it's great for portability. Hey, this is much smaller than if you had the full frame 24-105 on it, right? But it's just a little unbalanced when you use a smaller lens. So as you can tell, you can't just like set the camera down with a smaller lens. You're gonna have to keep the hood on it, and it becomes a much smaller package once you take off the XLR, obviously. Boom, and then you really don't have to worry about it, right? And then it becomes a very compact package. And so I feel like this is kind of the perfect stepping stone to save money on the body, but then start investing in lenses. So I would maybe only get one specific APS-C Sony lens, and that would be more on the wider side. If you want kind of an equivalent 16 mil, you're gonna have to go for an 11 mil, right? And that's only going to be an APS-C lens. So maybe only get one one APS-C lens, and then hey, you start getting some jobs and then start putting that money towards those 24-70 f2.8 beautiful full frame lenses that are going to grow with you as you upgrade your body along the way. And then another thing that I could see that would be really cool if they did this is if the body was actually smaller. Of course, Sony is going to save money and you're gonna have a better time with accessories if the body size stays the same, if it's the same as the FX3. I totally get that. But I feel like when you have a smaller sensor size, that's when you can really like, hey, make the body a little bit smaller, right? Shrink it down. The A6600, which I think I have over here, Sony's APS-C photo video hybrid line is so tiny. Look how tiny this is. Can you imagine if the FX30 came in a size like this? I could see people almost using it as a GoPro, maybe throwing it in small spaces like a car or a plane, right? And getting that same great image that you're used to from Sony cameras and being able to utilize acetone and all of that stuff, but then being able to use the smaller lenses and stuff like that. So I feel like that might have been a missed opportunity to even sell to people like me or, you know, fancier people like fancy DPs, because when you start watching fancier things, there's this James Corden segment with Tom Cruise and they were flying in planes. They used a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K as their GoPro in the cockpit essentially because they wanted a, you know, just a better image. And so I feel like that could have been this camera and you could have, you know, sold it to people like that. So hey, that does not make this camera bad. This is going to again be the perfect stepping stone if you want to get in this line of camera and get kind of a cinema camera, even though again it doesn't have like internal NDs or something like that, but it's going to be an easier price point to get into the Sony cinema line. However, around that $2,000 price point, if in-body image stabilization and autofocus isn't absolutely crucial, I still think a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K is worth looking into. It still has some of those proper cinema camera features that the FX30 and still the FX3 doesn't have. Things like true 24 frames per second, 4K DCI, shutter angle, or if you want to use shutter speed 1/48. It also has XLR capabilities. You just have to use a mini XLR adapter. You know, it has the internal RAW recording and that big, beautiful LCD screen. So if you're a solo documentarian or maybe need a lot of EF cameras that look cinematic for a podcast or interview setup, I'd still consider a Blackmagic. Another great thing is it has a constant power cable that is locked in the camera. You can't yank it out. But I think for literally everything else, well, I'd recommend starting out with the FX30 if you don't have the budget to go for one of their full frame lines, and you can start building up a meaningful setup that can basically shoot everything. It's just up to you on how quote unquote cinema-y you want to go. This is a super interesting camera, and even though again it's kind of like a recycled body, I definitely wanted to highlight it on my channel because I am almost the person they're appealing to if this was me 7 years ago, 7 to 8 years ago, because I have gone through their line of cameras, right? A7S II, and then the A7 III, and then the A7S III, and the FX3, and then the FX6, what I'm shooting on now. So it makes sense, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Is this appealing to you, or are you gonna look for maybe other Sony cameras, or maybe like a Blackmagic or something like that? So hey, let me know if you like this video, hit that subscribe button down below, and also shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. You can go to squarespace.com/sarad for 10% off your first purchase of a domain or website. Okay guys, stay peachy. Okay, bye.